Watch out, Shane Van Gisbergen could be coming to NASCAR full-time as soon as next season. And with less than 2 months until the playoffs, should Alex Bowman and other drivers begin to panic? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Little change of scenery. As you can see, I'm staying with some family, enjoying a little mini summer vacation, but the NASCAR conversation never slows down. Got some news to react to, then I'm gonna play a little game looking at the playoff bubble. Let's start with Shane Van Gisbergen. The New Zealand driver flew across the Pacific Ocean and outclassed NASCAR's best in the sport's first ever street race. SVG has taken over headlines across the country, across the racing world. Now folks are asking, will Shane Van Gisbergen make a full-time NASCAR charge? SVG has an existing supercars contract that lasts through next season, but AAA Race Engineering says they won't stand in the way of Shane Van Gisbergen if he wants to come to America soon. But AAA Race Engineering says they won't stand in the way of Shane Van Gisbergen if he wants to try out NASCAR full-time next year. AAA Race Engineering's managing director Jamie Whincup said recently, when asked if they would prevent SVG from coming to America next season, Whincup said, quote, "I certainly wouldn't stand in his way, no. Of course, there's contractual things we need to work through, but if someone really wants to go do something else, then I'm certainly not going to stand in his way, that's for sure." Interesting. The headlines coming out of Chicago were, maybe 2025 when this contract was up. We could see SVG make the jump to America. But now, it sounds like the three-time Supercars champ could race NASCAR full-time sooner than we realize. All of a sudden, a new name, a new face has entered NASCAR silly season. I don't watch a whole lot of Australian supercars. I've heard of Shane Van Gisbergen. Like I said the other night, he's raced in iRacing events that I've hosted on this channel, so that's where I'm most familiar with him. I've learned a lot about SVG after watching him win Chicago on Sunday, but I don't know a ton about his style, his background. I know he's driven a ton of different types of cars in a variety of different events. I don't know how quickly or how well he would adapt to high-banked ovals or short tracks here in NASCAR, but we saw Sunday how quickly he can adapt to these cars on a road course, or at least a street course. I venture to guess that, even at Sonoma or Watkins Glen or the Charlotte Roval, I'll bet SVG would adapt pretty quickly at those tracks as well. He's 34 years old, but hey, for a race car driver, he's just entering his prime. Maybe this is all a hypothetical, maybe this is a long shot, but which teams could SVG realistically drive for if he came to NASCAR next season? Of course, there's Trackhouse. He just won a race in Trackhouse equipment, but they would likely need to buy a third charter. One option could be 23XI. We've seen how aggressive they've been in going and getting the drivers they want. They went and snatched Tyler Reddick out from RCR a year early, and that's a team that's always talking about expanding. One team that I think should make a serious push, though, in the, can we call it a sweepstakes? The Shane Van Gisbergen sweepstakes. Maybe I'm overhyping. I don't think I am. I saw what he did firsthand at Chicago this past weekend. Maybe he's a road course specialist for now, but there is some raw racing ability that could translate to any style of NASCAR track. The one team I think should make a serious push, though, this may surprise a few of you, maybe not, is Stewart-Haas Racing. And that's assuming Aric Almirola is on the way out, which he sounds 50-50. He's still non-committal about next season. The way it sounds to me is he's 60-40 in favor of retirement. So assuming Aric Almirola is gone, Stewart-Haas Racing still needs experience. Look, I know Chase Briscoe's not the youngest young driver in the world. Ryan Preece is in his 30s. Josh Berry will be in his early 30s next year, but that team still needs experience. They need experience on the pit box. They need experience behind the wheel. I think that will help make this rebuild quicker. 34-year-old Shane Van Gisbergen could be exactly what the doctor ordered, and we've seen how fast he is on road courses. I think there's a great chance he wins a road race next year. That's an automatic playoff berth. If I'm Stewart-Haas Racing, I would take a good long look at Shane Van Gisbergen, see what's possible, see what's out there. If he needs to have his contract, his Supercars contract bought out, I mean, Gene Haas, it's easy to spend other people's money, but Gene Haas has deep pockets. He can make something happen. So I just want to throw out some suggestions right there. I don't know if you're Shane Van Gisbergen, though, does the Stewart-Haas deal entice you enough? Like, if you're SVG and you're winning supercars, you're talk of the town over there, do you really want to come to NASCAR and race for a team that, I mean, could be dying? I mean, I think SHR, they have the resources. I think they'll bounce back, but it's going to take a lot of work. Do you take that risk if you're SVG? Maybe not. Maybe not. If Trackhouse, 2311, a super team, if one of those teams doesn't have an opening for you, maybe you stay in Australia and do what you've been doing as well as you've been doing it. Anyway, just another name to keep an eye on over the next few months. Real quick, while we're on the note of NASCAR teams and silly season, Marco Andretti, I saw, is going to run the truck race this weekend at Mid-Ohio. He's driving the number 7 for Spire Motorsports. Cool for Marco Andretti. Didn't he win the SRX championship last year? Obviously, I know he has an open wheel background, part of the famed Andretti family. He made an Xfinity start at the Roval last year or the year before, I believe. So he's had a little bit of, he's dabbled in stock car racing before. Gonna be cool to see him drive a truck, probably a pretty competitive truck this weekend. But Andretti, NASCAR, reminded me of a headline I saw a couple weeks ago from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal, where he wrote that Andretti is looking to enter NASCAR in coming years. The team, Andretti Autosport. Of course, Andretti has been campaigning to join Formula One. I'm not exactly sure where things stand on that front, how that effort is going, but Andretti a decade ago, if I remember correctly, was talking about entering NASCAR back in the early Gen 6 years. Now, Gen 7, next gen, Andretti's testing the waters, putting feelers out there once again. This may be nothing, but it also could be something. Andretti could be the next big team in NASCAR to take the plunge. I thought this tweet from Bob Pockris, Fox Sports, was interesting. A fan asked Andretti to try some partnership with Spire to enter NASCAR in the future, and Bob, always tuned in, replied, "It certainly would be one of the avenues Andretti potentially could explore if it wants to be in NASCAR, but wouldn't say it is the only one." Ooh, so we've seen, GMS came in and bought Richard Petty Motorsports. Now it's been rebranded as Legacy Motor Club because Jimmy Johnson came in and bought part of GMS. Brad Keselowski bought into Roush, and now it's Roush Fenway Keselowski. Could Andretti see Spire, a small up-and-coming team? They've taken some big steps forward this year with Corey LaJoie in particular. Could they see that as a solid foundation, a good entry point? Rather than starting completely from scratch, you can work off of an existing foundation, kind of like a Trackhouse. They bought Chip Ganassi's charters, absorbed some of their people. This could be the same thing. Maybe Andretti comes in and fully rebrands Spire. Maybe there's a collaborative effort there, but maybe Andretti just buys up their 2 charters. Who knows? But it's just interesting. That Bob tweet got me thinking, okay, well, maybe there are some interesting paths Andretti could take to get into stock car racing. I'd welcome it. The more team owners, the more competitors that are out there every Sunday, especially a team like Andretti, I'm sure would certainly push towards being competitive sooner rather than later. There'd be pressure on them. I welcome it. I think it'd be great. The Andretti family, their racing legacy and history, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. Love to have the Andrettis in NASCAR. Those are just a couple of headlines I wanted to touch on. Now I want to look at the playoff bubble. We're down to 8 regular season races until the playoffs. That Daytona cutoff race is going to be here sooner than we realize. After the Chicago street race, the cut line looks very, very different. Ty Gibbs ran a very cool, calm, consistent race. He is actually holding on to the final playoff spot. Rookie Ty Gibbs got his first top 10 in months. He's to the good. Daniel Suarez is right there. Alex Bowman, the big loser, 20th. So I want to play a quick game. Trending up, trending down. This is how I'm feeling about these playoff bubble drivers with less than 2 months to go. Harvick, Buescher, Keselowski, unless we get a bunch of fluky winners, I don't see them missing out. So let's start with Bubba Wallace. He lost 14 points to the cut line this weekend, but I kind of expected it. He's not good at road racing, and unfortunately there are still 2 more road courses before the playoffs begin. Luckily for Bubba though, there are also 2 more super speedways beginning this weekend at Atlanta, also some big ovals like Michigan, Pocono. I expect him to run pretty well there. Toyota's usually good at Richmond, so Bubba Wallace, I'm gonna say somewhere in the middle because he did lose points to the cut line this weekend, but I like some of the tracks coming up here in the next few weeks. I think he's gonna likely extend. He might even get a win the next few weeks. He's one of the favorites at Atlanta this weekend, quite honestly. Ty Gibbs is a tough one to judge. I think you have to say he's trending up slightly. I mean, the guy was 18th in points a couple weeks ago. I think even last week he was 18th, but Top 10, uneventful Chicago race, avoided making any major mistakes, did what he had to do, and now he's +6. Ty Gibbs has shown, I think, great maturity this season. That was the big question about him last year in Xfinity. How would his emotions translate to Cup, where he goes from running top 5 every week, contending for wins, to now he's like 15th? Like, how would he manage that? Ty Gibbs has always been in the best cars, the best equipment. Now suddenly he's mid-pack, outran every single week. How would he adjust? I think he's adjusted pretty well. He's avoided making major mistakes. Meanwhile, his Rookie of the Year rival, Noah Gragson, makes multiple mistakes almost every week, it seems. I know he's dealing with worse equipment, but still, I've been pretty impressed with Ty Gibbs this year. He's kept his head down, he's gone to work, and I think he's done a very solid job. And right now he's holding on to a playoff spot, trending up. Daniel Suarez, mistakes by the driver cost them at Sonoma, cost them a couple weeks ago at Nashville, a race that we saw how fast his teammate was. I mean, just look at Trackhouse. They've won the last 2 races, and Daniel Suarez really hasn't been in the picture. I think he's trending down ever so slightly. I like Daniel Suarez a lot, but he's got to dig deep these next 8 weeks. Ross Chastain, clearly the #1 guy at Trackhouse. He's the best driver there. That's the best team, the most cohesive unit right now. But Daniel Suarez is the OG. He was the original Trackhouse driver. That's who this team was built around. These next 8 weeks, we need to see some grit from this team. Avoid the mistakes. You've got the speed. Just don't take yourself out of contention. Michael McDowell is only 10 points below the cut line. I'm saying he's trending up right now. Similar to Bubba, there's a couple super speedways coming up. McDowell's always a threat there, but I guess unlike Bubba, there's also a couple road courses left, and Michael McDowell is a tremendous road racer. So he's 10 points out. Man, he won his way in with the Daytona 500 a couple years ago. He could legitimately point his way in a front row car. That would be very impressive, considering that his crew chief was poached by a bigger organization. They had to scramble, put someone new in that role, and they've hardly missed a beat. Well done. AJ Allmendinger -24. He is absolutely trending up. He has finished inside the top 15 in 4 straight races. Another great road racer. He was fast at Chicago. He didn't have winning speed, but was a top 10 threat. He'll be a top 5 threat, I think, at Watkins Glen and Indianapolis, 2 tracks he's won at before in the NASCAR Cup Series. So yeah, I think AJ Allmendinger is starting to peak at the right time, and his best tracks are still to come. Allmendinger is trending up. Watch out. Alex Bowman, meanwhile, just can't get anything to go his way right now. He was running fine at Chicago this weekend. I think he was running around 11th or 12th when he just got wrecked by Denny Hamlin, and then I think an oil line broke or something. That's why he finished last. Chicago is just bad luck. I don't think there's really any other way to say it. Just really bad luck during a stretch of races here where Bowman really can't have any more bad luck. He fell from, I think he was 17th or 18th in points to 20th. 20th. Yeah, he's only 26 points out of the cut line, but there's a lot of drivers he's got to pass these next 8 weeks. Bowman was so consistent out the gate this year, was leading the points. Then he got hurt, missed a few races, and they just haven't looked the same since. And honestly, all of Hendrick the last few weeks looks a little slower than they were at the beginning of this season. So a bad mix of combinations right now for Alex Bowman. He's trending down. I don't think he has a top 10 finish, if I remember correctly, since Richmond. That was like almost 3 months ago. So what else can I say? Justin Haley's made the highlight reel the past couple weeks. He qualified 3rd at Nashville, didn't race too great, but then at the end of the Chicago street race, he was in contention for his 2nd career win. Got some help from NASCAR, changing the distance midway through, flipped the strategy, but he was virtually mistake-free and put up a valiant effort versus SVG in the closing laps. Despite Shane Van Gisbergen being a lifelong street racer, despite Shane Van Gisbergen probably being in a better car, having fresher tires, Justin Haley put up a fight, finished a very impressive 2nd, made up a lot of points. Suddenly he's in this picture. I think there's no way Haley makes the playoffs without a win, but he's a super speedway guy. He won 4 plate races in the Xfinity Series. He could win at Atlanta this weekend. He's got to be a dark horse. Haley is trending up. Cindric, I don't really know what to say about Austin Cindric. It's just sophomore slump. He is down in every statistical category compared to last season. And honestly, last season, we cut him some slack because he was a rookie, but last season wasn't all that great outside of the Daytona 500 win, which, to be fair, that's pretty fantastic. That'll make your year. Got to see something more from Cindric. He's a good super speedway racer. He's proven that. Obviously a good road racer, but how many drivers have I said that about now? How many drivers have I said are good at plate races, good at road courses? He's got a lot of competition. That's the point. And you got guys like SVG coming in at Chicago, stealing the show. you got to watch out for ringers now too. It's going to be hard to win if you're a guy like Cindric who hasn't shown winning speed all year long. Corey LaJoie, he's been in contention late at Daytona in the past. He was, in contention at Atlanta last year until, Chase Elliott made that late race block. So watch out for Corey. Can't count him out. Last driver I want to talk about though is Chase Elliott, who continues to eat into that cut line, that deficit. He was 80 something points back then. He was 60 something points back. Now minus 55. He too got bailed out by the distance changing at Chicago. Great road racer Chase Elliott did not run well at all at Chicago. Slow in practice, wrecked in qualifying. They bring out the backup. Was not really a factor until he got all that track position. And then credit to Chase, he didn't make any major mistakes during the race and held on to a top 5 spot. But got some more road races coming up. Will we see the old Chase Elliott? He's trending up for sure because he's continuing to eat into that points gap. He may not need to win at this rate. He may just keep top 5ing and top 10ing the field to death, and he could still make his way into the playoffs regardless. But still a lot of ground to make up. I like where he's heading. It's going to be a heck of a journey these next few weeks. Let me know what you think. Looking at these names right here, anybody who you think is trending up, drivers who are fading that we should worry about, leave a comment down below. But that is gonna do it for this episode, y'all. I've been looking at this like arcade machine by me. Does it? It's turned on. I wanna see if it works. Oh my gosh, it works. Let me bring the camera over here really quick. Oh my gosh, no, don't kill me. We're playing Galaga, boys. Ooh. Oh. Welcome to Out of the Groove Let's Plays. Now I don't know how to turn that thing off, so my ships just keep getting blown up. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Things are blown up behind me. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, as always, for your very generous support. I gotta figure out how to turn that off. Thanks for watching, y'all. I will see you again the next few days. I'll see you after Atlanta, most likely. Take it easy, y'all.